God, and that God can only come and be, in a sense, real to us through the intercession and the instrumentality, the human exchange of Mary. Then you have the understanding, though, that this is a moment in which something is very important about the majesty of Mary and Jesus. And then finally, that the tenderness of Mary and Jesus in this third white portrait is a revelation of the divine understanding of God. Now, the reason I want to emphasize these points is that as we begin to talk about discernment, and we begin to talk about discernment as a way of coming to understand the will of God, we really have as our best model Mary and Jesus, because they are the ones that in their own lives were both open to the full power of God. Behold, the handmaid of the Lord. And then, as you see tomorrow in the gospel, Jesus opens up the scroll and he pronounces out of his understanding of the revelation of God that he accepted as a Jew, that he was the one who was going to proclaim the good news. So both Mary and Jesus model a kind of discipleship. In Luke's gospel, you see the development of Mary as a disciple of Jesus. But in Luke's gospel, you can also discern the movement of Jesus as a disciple of the Father. And so if you said to me, what finally in evangelical gospel terms do you think St. Ignatius is getting at in his spirituality? I'd say it's to make us alert to our discipleship, the way in which we can be in our life followers of the Lord in order to continue in who we are, to be a parable of what the kingdom of God should be. Okay? Big, tall order, huh? All right. So that's kind of a background for what we're doing. You'll notice that in that introduction that I have there, that this reflection in turn led me to reconsider this, what we call the triple colloquy. Colloquy is just an intimate prayer between the woman or man making the exercises and God. There's an annotation number 15 in the introductory remarks of Ignatius. The numbers aren't important, but for those who know it, it's helpful to know what I'm talking about. In many ways, that is a touchstone of Ignatian spirituality, and it says that when God is dealing directly with the person making the exercises, and the person in the exercises is dealing directly with God, it's the role of the guide of the retreat to get out of the way and to let God communicate and the person communicate in whatever way they wish. Later on, you can reflect on the direction of this. You can point out that there's a difference between the moment of God communicating and what preceded it and what comes after, and those are important. But you don't give God to anybody. God gives God to us. And what you do is stand in reverential awe to support it, not to supplant it by any kind of trickery and call that spiritual direction. That's not spirit, that's spiritual interference. Okay? So the touchstone is to allow God and the creature to be in communication. And that's very important because in the dynamic of the spiritual exercises, you're going to hope that a woman or man going through them seriously will see that there are things they should do in their life because God is calling them to this. God's call. Now, if you in any way interfere with that, you don't know that it's God's call. And so sometimes years later, people will say, you know why I became a priest? I said, why? Because my mother wanted me to be one. And I realized as the years went on that that was the most important thing. I don't mean that she prayed for me or that she told me she'd be happy. I mean, she really wanted this in a way in which I knew that this was the one thing I could do to please her. And I woke up one day and realized I pleased everybody but myself. Now you say, that doesn't happen, does it? Yes, it does. And we're living in an age in which getting kids to understand that the career they choose should be the one that gives them passion and joy and not their parents' passion and joy is very important. The same kind of manipulation hasn't stopped. It's become more sophisticated and more prevalent. And so many people will say, I'd love to be a teacher, but my father says there's no money in it. And I say, well, there isn't. But you want to be starving and happy, be a teacher, you know? But the important thing is, what do you want to do? So it's against this broad background of God dealing directly with a person in order to lead us to an authentic decision about what we are to be and do, insofar as we can in our human limitations, understand that, and make the decision to live our life in that way. That's what this is all about. Now, I want to talk about this triple colloquy as a climax in the prayer at particular moments in the exercises that says something important to us about Mary and Jesus and God that has a strong impact about the way we